Samantha lived a life that felt heavy, like a backpack full of stones. In the morning, she would wake up in her small, cozy apartment in Seattle. The sun would peek through her curtains, and for a moment she would feel warmth. But soon she would remember her long list of worries. Breakfast was always a quick bowl of cereal, eaten in silence as she scrolled through her phone, looking at pictures of smiling friends and families. All around her seemed happy, but she felt alone. At work, Samantha was known as the quiet one. She smiled and said hello to her coworkers but never shared much about herself. Afraid of opening up, she wore a mask of friendliness while keeping her real feelings hidden. Her coworkers thought she was just shy, but inside, she battled sadness and anxiety. Unfinished chapters of her childhood haunted her thoughts, creating shadows in her mind. Samantha had faced bullying in school, where her classmates teased her for being different and called her names that stuck. This hurt her deeply, leaving her with scars that were not visible on her skin but felt heavy in her heart. When she went home at night, the silence felt loud. She often replayed those painful memories in her mind, the words that cut through her like knives. Those moments made her question her worth, making her feel unlovable and out of place. Samantha wanted to reach out to people, but she feared that no one would understand her pain. Instead, she built walls to protect herself from the feelings that threatened to spill out. In her attempts to cope, she turned to distractions. Books and TV shows became her escape, allowing her to forget her reality for a while. Yet, deep down, she yearned for connection and understanding. She wanted to share her dreams and fears, but the fear of being judged held her back. It was a struggle to form close relationships. Whenever she made a new friend, a little voice in her head warned her that they would leave, just like others had. These thoughts made her cautious. At social events, she would stand on the sidelines, watching others laugh and share stories. It was painful to feel invisible amongst people who seemed so happy and together. Samantha feared others could see her emotional distance, and that they would realize her mask was just a shield for her pain. On the outside, she looked like a normal woman, but inside, she felt like a storm. There were days when she felt hopeful, days when she believed she could change her path. In those moments, she considered seeking help. But then doubt crept in. Would anyone really understand her, or would her secrets push them away? Samantha's journey was one of seeking healing from her painful past while learning how to connect with others in a way that felt safe and authentic, one step at a time. As the days turned into weeks, Samantha found herself feeling more out of place than ever. The sunny mornings that once warmed her were now clouded with a sense of unease. In her small apartment, the silence became a constant reminder of the things she was trying to ignore. Deep down, she knew she wasn't okay, but admitting this felt like climbing a mountain with no end in sight. An internal battle raged inside her. Part of her wanted to heal, while another part was terrified of what healing might require. "I can handle this," she often told herself. "Others have real problems." This thought pushed away the idea of asking for help. She believed she didn't deserve support, thinking that her struggles were minor compared to the challenges others faced. No one else had to know how lost she felt. She could manage on her own. But in truth, each day felt like a cycle of weariness that drained her energy and spirit. Samantha remembered her friend, Lisa, had suggested therapy. The idea of sitting in a room with a stranger and talking about her pain was overwhelming. What if the therapist judged her? What if they didn't understand? She would think, "I don't need therapy. I can work through this myself. I just need to focus on the positive." Inwardly, her doubts acted like voices hissing in her ears, telling her she was weak for needing help. This internal noise pressed down on her like a weight she couldn't shake off. She often found excuses to avoid the idea of confronting her past. After work, she would convince herself that she just needed to read or go to a movie, anything to fill her time and keep her mind busy. "I'll think about it next week," was a common phrase she used, but next week never came. Samantha was hopeful in those fleeting moments when she thought about change, but hope quickly faded when the fear swallowed it whole. "I'm not ready," she would say, and often her heart would agree silently. The feeling kept her trapped, like a bird in a cage that's too afraid to fly. The nights were often the hardest for her. Alone with her thoughts, she would replay moments from her past, the hurtful words from her childhood, the gossip echoes that stung her like icy winter air. Each memory was like a wall that grew higher every time she tried to peek over it. If I talk about it, they'll think I'm crazy, she worried, and this thought would shatter her courage like glass. It pushed her deeper into her safe shell, further isolating her from the connections she so desperately wanted. Samantha often engaged in self-sabotage, making choices that would leave her feeling more isolated. When a colleague invited her to a gathering, she would decline, telling herself it was better not to go. What if I embarrass myself? What if they see the real me? These concerns built walls that kept her shut away from happiness. Each time she avoided social events, she missed out on moments that could have brought joy and meaningful friendships. The cycle of fear and resistance kept pushing her back to where she started. Even when friends reached out, eager to lend support, Samantha often made excuses to stand back. I'm too tired, or I need time to myself, were her go-to phrases. Deep inside, she feared opening up, worrying that her pain was too heavy for anyone else to carry. But one evening, as she gazed out her window at the fading light, a small light flickered within her. Samantha began to wonder what it would be like to share her story. What if healing wasn't about facing it all at once but taking small steps? Summoning the tiniest spark of courage, she knew that facing her fears in the past might finally lead her to the connection she always craved. One rainy afternoon, Samantha settled into her favorite corner of the cafe, wrapped in her warm scarf with a book in her hands. She sipped her coffee, letting the rich aroma fill her senses. As she flipped through the pages, she felt lost in the story until a familiar voice broke the calm. It was Lisa, her friend from work. Lisa approached with a wide smile, and something about her energy was infectious. Mind if I join you? Lisa asked, her eyes sparkling with warmth. Samantha nodded, putting her book aside, though she felt an unease creeping in. The moments they spent together were always comfortable, but today felt different. They chatted about work and shared little laughs, yet underneath it all, Samantha felt a storm brewing in her heart. During their conversation, Lisa shared a personal story about her struggles with anxiety. She talked about how she had reached a point where she couldn't hide her feelings anymore. It was her honest words that struck Samantha deeply. As Lisa opened up, Samantha's defenses began to crumble. Hearing her friend express vulnerability made Samantha realize that it was okay to not be okay. Suddenly, she felt a rush of emotions, a flood of thoughts crashing into her like waves. Memories from her past bridged into the present. Those years of hiding and pretending began to glow like embers in the dark. As the aroma of coffee swirled around them, Samantha thought about her own scars, those invisible wounds that weighed heavily on her heart. What if sharing her truth could lessen the burden? After their conversation, something inside Samantha began to shift. It was like the first light of morning peeking through the curtains after a long, dark night. The fear of healing still hovered like a shadow, but there was also a growing feeling of hope. She could almost see the possibility of moving forward, of confronting her past instead of running from it. That night, with a mix of fear and excitement, she opened her journal for the first time in months. Taking a deep breath, she began to write. The words flowed out slowly but surely, like a stream finally breaking free from a dam. Each sentence felt like peeling away layers that had kept her heart closed. She wrote about the bullying in school, the painful memories of being called names that made her feel small. Writing felt liberating in ways she hadn't expected, and she realized the first step towards acknowledging her wounds didn't have to be terrifying. It could be empowering. In the following days, Samantha began to notice small changes in herself. Before work, she would take a moment to breathe deeply, affirming to herself that she was worthy of healing. I am strong. I deserve to feel whole. These simple affirmations became tiny victories that brightened her days. She decided to reach out to Lisa more often, wanting to connect and share her journey. One evening, while they were talking on the phone, she surprised herself by admitting, I think I need to talk to someone about what I've been through. Her voice shook, but the words felt right. On the other end, Lisa offered gentle encouragement. That's a brave step, Sam. You don't have to go through this alone. Hearing those words made Samantha realize how vital support could be. Feeling buoyed by newfound confidence, she made a commitment to look into therapy. With each passing day, a little more light broke through the fog that had lingered for so long. The realization that she could confront her pain without feeling overwhelmed started to reshape her mindset. Each little accomplishment felt like a brick laid down in the path towards healing. Samantha knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but with the courage she'd begun to find, she felt ready to face whatever came next. The journey to heal was unfolding, one small step at a time, and for the first time in a long while, she felt the warmth of hope shining brightly in her heart. Samantha sat in her therapist's office, heart racing and palms sweating. Everything felt surreal: the soft chairs, the calming colors on the walls, the gentle ticking of the clock. She could hardly believe she was here, ready to confront the pain she had buried for so long. As she took a deep breath, the weight on her chest felt heavy, like lead pressing her down. Her therapist, Dr. Johnson, smiled kindly, assuring her that this was a safe space. Still, doubt crept into Samantha's mind. What if I can't do this? What if it's too much? The thoughts tangled together like knots in her stomach. It was a strange experience, the urge to turn back clashing with the desire to heal. Dr. Johnson prompted her to start wherever she felt comfortable. With trembling hands, Samantha hugged her knees, looking down at her feet. I've been bullied in school, she began, her voice barely a whisper. Suddenly, memories rushed back, vivid and powerful. The laughter, the teasing, it was as if she was a child again, standing alone on the playground, feeling ostracized and afraid. As she spoke, tears began to flow. The sobs came like waves crashing over her, filled with sadness and fear she had pushed aside for far too long. Each tear felt like a release, each word an unburdening of the heavy veil that had clouded her mind for years. But the emotional journey was intimidating, and Samantha felt a mix of vulnerability and fear. Am I too broken to fix? She thought, worried that she would drown in the memories and never find her way back. Pushing through the emotional storm, she acknowledged a recurring theme in her life: the defense mechanisms she had built to avoid hurt. Avoidance became a shield for her, allowing her to sidestep painful moments. I just told myself it didn't matter, she admitted. Often, she had pretended everything was okay when it wasn't. But now, it felt crucial to face these habits head on. It was difficult to let go of the coping mechanisms that had become so familiar. For example, she realized how often she chose isolation instead of connecting with a friend. I thought it would protect me, she shared. Now she understood that those barriers only isolated her further. Samantha could see clearly how each choice, though seemingly safe, had kept her from experiencing true joy. Throughout the hour, Samantha experienced an emotional tug-of-war, a tears of pain versus feelings of empowerment. You can do this, she kept reassuring herself. With every tear shed, she felt a little lighter, inching closer to understanding that healing could begin. Each painful memory she faced was like pulling out a thorn. It hurt, but it also freed her from suffering. As the session progressed, Samantha began to notice that even in the pain, there was a glimmer of strength. A resolve began to surface within her. If I share this, maybe I can finally start to heal. It became clear that avoiding the past would not bring peace. It was hard and scary, but facing the truth felt necessary. She realized her journey was not about erasing the past, but learning from it and moving forward. Before she knew it, time was almost up. Samantha wiped her tears, feeling mixed emotions swirling inside: fear, vulnerability, but also hope. Walking out of the therapy room, she felt like she had taken an important step, not towards perfection but towards authenticity. Confronting her past was challenging, but with every small victory, she was discovering that she was far more powerful than she had ever believed. Over the next few weeks, Samantha continued to meet with Dr. Johnson. Each session brought new challenges, but she felt a sense of progress slowly growing within her. Every time she walked into the office, she felt stronger, despite the tight knot in her stomach. She was beginning to confront the negative beliefs that had haunted her for years, thoughts that crept into her mind like shadows refusing to let in the light. I'm unworthy of love, and I'll never be enough, were the mantras that rolled through her mind every time she faced a disappointment. Samantha knew she needed to fight against these beliefs, but it was a tough battle. Dr. Johnson guided her gently whenever these thoughts came up. "Where did these ideas come from, Samantha?" he would ask. As she faced her past, she realized how early these beliefs had formed. Memories of being bullied swarmed her brain, where the hurtful words echoed over and over. Each time a classmate rejected her or said something mean, a piece of her self-worth was chipped away, leaving her feeling smaller and less valuable. Each time Dr. Johnson encouraged her to challenge one of these negative thoughts, she felt a wave of resistance. "But those feelings are true, aren't they?" she would argue, her mind scrambling to cling to those familiar beliefs. The thought of questioning them felt scary, like standing at the edge of a cliff, peering into the abyss below. "What if I dive in and find that I really am unworthy?" It was easier to stay in the comfort of her grief than to discover new truths about herself. Yet, as she pushed to confront these thoughts, she noticed a flicker of doubt about their validity. There were moments when she would remember instances of kindness, a friend who believed in her, the support of her family. Dr. Johnson urged her to make a list of positive experiences. "Focus on the times when you felt loved or valued," he suggested. At first, finding those moments was difficult. They felt buried beneath layers of hurt. But slowly, Samantha began to dig them out. The mental resistance started to weaken. A memory surfaced of her cousin's wedding where she had felt beautiful and appreciated. As she wrote these moments down, a pattern began to appear. There were glimpses of connections that affirmed her worth. These memories became anchors of light, small reminders that contradicted the shadows of her past. Yet each time she began to embrace a new notion. "Maybe I am worthy of love." Another thought would creep in. "What if that's just wishful thinking?" The breakthrough happened one particularly emotional session. As they delved deeper, Dr. Johnson asked her to reflect on her past relationships. "How did those experiences shape your beliefs about love?" Samantha reflected and recalled her last romantic relationship, which had ended painfully. She remembered how he pressed her down, minimizing her feelings, making her question her worth every time they fought. "See? Love only leads to hurt," she had told herself after the breakup, solidifying her belief that she could never be enough for anyone. Yet, as she spoke, Samantha saw how those experiences had warped her views on love. She realized that his inability to value her did not define her can. It hit her suddenly. There were chances ahead to rewrite her story. The tremendous burden of these negative beliefs felt less heavy. The revelation brought tears to her eyes. "I don't have to believe those things anymore," she whispered, more to herself than to Dr. Johnson. With each step she took in therapy, she was gaining perspective on her past and reclaiming the vibrant parts of herself she had thought lost. That day, a small flame ignited within her, hope and resolution in embracing her worth, and she felt as if she were making a promise to herself, one she intended to keep. One sunny afternoon, Samantha sat on a park bench, the sunlight dancing through the leaves overhead. It was one of those days that should feel joyful, but an unsettling heaviness rested in her chest. Although therapeutic sessions had opened her eyes to her past, there was still a part of her that felt trapped in a cycle of hurt. This week had been especially hard. Interactions with people at work had left her feeling fragile. The little achievements seemed overshadowed by doubt and fear. As she watched children laughing and playing, a wave of sadness washed over her. It struck deep in her heart, reminding her of the innocence she felt she had lost. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to center herself. But rather than feeling better, all of the suppressed emotions flooded her mind at once. Memories rolled through like a thunderstorm. Jarring scenes of bullying and heartbreak played out in vivid colors. Each flash made her feel vulnerable, a wave of despair crashing over her. At that moment, the recurring thought hit her again. "I'm unworthy." It felt like a bitter truth she could never shake off. Tears filled her eyes as she choked on the emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. Despite the progress she had made, the weight of her past felt heavy, like a chain pulling her down. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a memory struck her, one that felt particularly sharp. It was an incident from middle school where a group of classmates had laughed at her and called her names. Even now, she could hear their voices in a cruel chorus that whispered, "Loser! At that time, she had thought that maybe it was true. Standing alone in that scene, little Samantha had felt completely worthless. That old feeling howled within her again, as if she were trapped in that moment. Overwhelmed, she clutched her head in her hands. Will this ever end? She murmured to herself. It was a cry for help as much as it was a reminder of how far she still had to go. But within this chaos, something began to change. A flicker of realization lit up within her. This pain was not her entire story. It didn't have to define who she was becoming now. With a surge of will, Samantha looked up at the sky, both frightened and defiant. She understood that it was time to take a stand. No more, she whispered aloud through her tears. I refuse to let this control my life any longer. At that moment, something cracked open inside, and she felt a sudden rush of empowerment. Samantha could have let the pain drown her. It would have been easier to stay quiet and suffer in silence. Instead, she chose to embody her growing strength. Thoughts raced through her mind, reminding her of the support she had from friends like Lisa. This pain doesn't mean I'm broken. I'm still here, and I deserve so much more. Feeling the warmth from the sun touching her cheeks, she got to her feet, filled with a sense of urgency. She needed action. Her heart raced with anticipation as she grabbed her phone, ready to reach out. I'll schedule another session, she decided. Instead of fearing the appointments, she embraced them as vital tools for change. Writing messages to her friends, she invited them to join her for upcoming weekend plans, wanting to create connections rather than isolate herself. The comfort of community felt vital and grounding. In that pivotal moment, standing in the park surrounded by laughter instead of tears, she realized that vulnerability was not a weakness but an invitation for healing. Overwhelmed, yes, but empowered more than ever, Samantha chose to embrace the struggle and step forward. Moving past her past began now, and she would do it with her heart wide open. This was her turning point, grabbing the reins of her life after too long in the shadows. In the weeks that followed her emotional breakthrough, Samantha began to notice a shift within herself. The weight that once felt unbearable had lightened just enough for her to breathe more freely. She embraced a newfound commitment to her healing process, and every small step felt momentous. She aimed to replace her negative patterns with healthier habits, guided by insights from therapy that echoed softly in her mind. One of the first changes she made was creating a self-care routine that prioritized her well-being. She started each morning with 5 minutes of deep breathing, something Dr. Johnson had suggested. Sitting on the edge of her bed with the sun streaming through the window, she would inhale deeply while reminding herself, I am worthy of love and peace. These gentle affirmations helped her combat the self-doubt that had lingered for so long. Next, she introduced a small gratitude journal into her daily routine. Each night, just before bed, she would jot down 3 things she appreciated about herself or her life that day. At first, it was hard to write anything, but soon those entries transformed into a light in her evening. She found joy in even the small moments: a warm cup of tea, the warm tone in her mother's voice during a phone call, or the flowers blooming outside her window. These reflections began to cultivate a sense of self-compassion she had never truly allowed herself to feel before. Samantha also incorporated short exercise sessions into her day. Walking in the nearby park became a welcome ritual that not only lifted her mood but also offered her precious moments of solitude to process her thoughts. The rhythm of her footsteps grounding her, she would often think about the challenges she had faced and how far she had come. The openness of nature reminded her that healing was a journey, much like the path stretching out before her. During therapy sessions, she began to open up about her guilt from the past. It felt terrifying to confront those feelings, yet she recognized their hold on her was fading. Why did I let them get to me? She often wondered, reflecting on how she had internalized the hurtful words of others. During one session, Dr. Johnson reminded her, forgiveness isn't about condoning their actions. It's about freeing yourself. Those words resonated sweetly, becoming a guiding principle for her. As she learned to forgive her younger self for enduring pain, she discovered that the act of letting go allowed her a kind of relief she hadn't thought possible. With each gentle revelation, she began to unshackle herself from a history that had long held too much power over her emotions. The guilt started to melt, as if warmed by the light of acceptance, Samantha noticed she was becoming more open in her interactions with others. Instead of isolating herself in moments of sadness, she sought out connections. Attending coffee dates with friends became a source of strength, and she cherished the way laughter filled her heart with warmth. Conversations flowed more easily as she shared snippets of her journey. It felt refreshing to speak freely of past pains while realizing that she wasn't the only one carrying burdens. By practicing self-compassion, Samantha allowed room for her struggles without the weight of judgment. Whenever old thoughts crept in, such as feeling unlovable or undeserving, she met them with kindness. "It's okay to feel this way sometimes," she would remind herself, countering them with memories of her progress. Every time she picked up her journal or took a breath of fresh air, she reinforced her growing sense of self-worth. In this aftermath, Samantha felt more grounded than she had in years. Though the path ahead still held challenges, she recognized each step was part of her journey toward healing. She accepted that it was okay to have felt broken in the past, as this acceptance allowed her to embrace herself truly. Changes were emerging, and while she felt vulnerable, she also experienced an undeniable strength blossoming within her. As months passed, Samantha felt the winds of change stirring within her, not just within herself but also in her relationships. With each small victory she achieved in therapy and self-reflection, she sensed that it was time to reshape her connection with others. The idea of rebuilding her social life felt daunting, but every step toward it also brewed excitement. She was ready to step out of her shell. She began by reconnecting with old friends, starting with Lisa. One sunny afternoon, they met at their favorite cafe for coffee. The warm atmosphere matched the light in Samantha's heart as she felt appreciation for the friendship they shared. While they ordered, she found courage stirring within her. "I've been working on some personal things," she opened up, her voice steady. She talked about her journey through therapy, feeling an intimacy in sharing her vulnerabilities for the first time. To her surprise, Lisa listened with wide eyes, nodding earnestly as Samantha spoke. "I'm so proud of you, Sam. It takes a lot of courage to face these things," Lisa encouraged. Samantha felt a rush of warmth, realizing that vulnerability was not something to fear but a bond that could strengthen their friendship. In the weeks that followed, Samantha started to move differently in her interactions. She set boundaries with those around her, learning that it was okay to prioritize her mental health. If a friend canceled plans at the last minute or invited her somewhere she didn't feel comfortable, instead of avoiding confrontation, she would express her feelings. "I really value our time together, and I hope we can plan something else soon," she would say, soft but firm. This shift made her more confident and empowered. When she spoke up about her needs, it solidified her self-worth and slowly invited respect from others. She noticed changes in her friendships. A sense of mutual understanding blossomed as her friends recognized her new boundaries and an openness to communicate. Several of them thanked her for being honest, and Samantha felt a glow of appreciation knowing she was promoting healthy connections. When it came to dating, Samantha approached it differently as well. Instead of pushing herself to impress others or hiding her insecurities, she allowed herself to be genuine. The urge to build appearances faded as she explored what a relationship could be like without wearing a mask. She started chatting with someone named Jake, a quiet and thoughtful guy she met in a book club. Their first few conversations were nerve-wracking, yet refreshing, as she felt like she could truly be herself. During their outings, she found herself laughing and sharing stories without fear of being judged. Late one evening, as they strolled through a nearby park, she opened up about the impact of her past and the journey toward healing. "I've had moments that felt very dark, but I'm learning to embrace the light," she confided. To her delight, Jake responded with sincerity and understanding. "Thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate your honesty," he replied, making her heart flutter with happiness. Jake's openness in return felt safe, encouraging her to explore the depth of their connection. She cherished the feeling of being able to express herself fully, a gift she previously thought was unattainable. Allowing this vulnerability enhanced their budding relationship, weaving a thread of trust that bound them closer together. The loves she offered herself were being returned through the positivity she cultivated. With these new boundaries and deeper connections, spirits brightened around her. Friends shared stories of their own vulnerabilities, and the conversations felt deeper than before. With every affectionate exchange, Samantha realized that the layers of hurt from the past didn't have to define her future. Now, she was stepping into a new life filled with relationships grounded in authenticity, support, and mutual respect. Samantha's world began to shimmer with possibilities. She was no longer just a participant in life. She was actively shaping her experience, one genuine connection at a time. The old fears were slowly replaced with a sense of community and belonging, enriching her journey with hope and light. Samantha stood by her window one crisp morning, watching the sunrise paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. As the light spilled into her apartment, she felt a sense of warmth fill her heart. The past year had been a roller coaster of emotions, filled with trials and tiny victories, and looking back, she realized just how far she had come on her healing journey. Her perception of her past had shifted significantly. The painful memories did not disappear, but they no longer held the suffocating power they once did. Instead of viewing those moments as scars, Samantha saw them as part of her growth. Each experience, though difficult, had shaped her into who she was today. She could almost hear Dr. Johnson's reassuring voice echoing in her mind about resilience and strength. She no longer carried shame but instead recognized her ability to survive hardships. With clarity, she began to appreciate the lessons woven through her challenges. The bullying and rejection had once made her feel unworthy and alone, but now, those bitter experiences fueled her desire to help others. She felt a strong yearning to make a difference, to give back, and to ensure that no one felt as isolated as she had. This newfound purpose blossomed from the understanding that vulnerability could lead to genuine connections and healing, not just for herself but for others as well. Her perspective on self-worth had experienced a profound transformation. Where once there was doubt, she now had a firm belief in her value. She had stopped measuring herself by others' opinions, embracing the truth that she was enough just as she was. Thoughts that once drowned her in despair became affirmations of her strength. "I am worthy of love and joy," she would remind herself each day. These words became the foundation of a new belief system that lifted her spirit higher than she ever thought possible. As she moved forward, she set intentions for her life that were filled with hope. She had begun volunteering with a local support group that helped young people cope with bullying and self-esteem issues. Bringing her experiences to the table felt empowering, and witnessing others heal fueled her spirit. Each shared story illuminated further the connection she sought in her life. It was her contribution to the world, a way to shine light into the dark corners where she once felt trapped. Samantha also continued to nurture her friendships. The relationships she had rebuilt were vibrant and genuine. Each connection offered a space to share, laugh, and lean on one another during tough times. She cherished the depth of her friendships and nurtured them with care, understanding now that these relationships were mutual, based on mutual respect and vulnerability. In terms of her career, Samantha had begun to take on more responsibilities at work. She found herself engaged in new projects, bringing ideas and enthusiasm to the table she once feared to express. Her colleagues noticed the changes in her and began seeking her input, lighting a fire within her as she saw her confidence grow. Looking ahead, she was most excited about the journey of self-discovery that lay before her. Potential opportunities awaited that she had once brushed aside, now ignited with hope and possibility. She considered pursuing further education and exploring new professional pathways. Learning, growing, and challenging herself felt invigorating, unlike anything in her past that had left her stagnant and afraid. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Samantha felt a wave of optimism swell in her chest. She understood that healing is not a destination but a lifelong journey, one filled with steps, missteps, and everything in between. No longer shackled by the weight of her past, she moved with a lightness that mirrored the bright colors of the sunrise outside her window. The life she envisioned now felt within reach, painted with the vivid brushstrokes of hope, strength, and newfound purpose.